Namaste. In the Gita, the second chapter, stanza 46. To the knower of Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the Vedas are of no more use than a well when the land all around is in flood. This is a very important passage because many people think that through the intellect they will understand. The intellect is just a small little portion of our understanding. Actually, I have experienced in life that I don't really understand a thing until my heart understands it. It's a curious fact that there are more, or at least as many nerves in the heart as there are in the brain. The heart has a kind of knowing that the intellect can't know. There was a very interesting story. I think it's come out more than once in different forms, but this woman had a heart transplant. And right after having the heart transplant, she found she had all sorts of desires that she'd never had before. She suddenly wanted chicken. She'd never liked chicken. She suddenly wanted to smoke. She'd never smoked. And she did a great deal of research. They wouldn't tell her who the donor had been. It was a young man who had died, but she didn't know this. But after a great deal of effort, she found who this young man was and what his habits had been. He loved chicken and he loved smoking and he loved several things that suddenly she found herself wanting. So here this physical organ, which as far as we know only pumps blood, actually has its own intelligence. It's made me think that if ever I need a heart transplant, I'd rather not get it. I'd rather just get on with the job of dying. But in the study of the scriptures, it's not enough to understand them with the intellect, nor is it enough to understand them with the heart. The heart has different aspects. That desire for chicken and for smoking is a desire, it's an emotion. But the true feelings of the heart are intuitive. It was an interesting experience. My mother was very intuitive, and one time she said to my father, I know that you always say that I say this after the fact, so now I'm telling you before the fact. Today we will get an important letter, and it will make an impact on our lives. And sure enough, that letter came that day. So she knew certain things that my father, being very intellectual, did not. But the feelings of the heart are not enough. It must go beyond the heart to the soul. Intuition is calm feeling. When you get emotions, then you can't trust your feeling because it will color everything. Science tells us that we must not have feelings in our research. Well, they're wrong. Einstein, for a good example, he discovered the law of relativity just like that. It came to him in a flash. Then it took him 10 years to be able to explain it to other people in such a way that they would understand it too. But it came to him as a flash of intuition, and the intellect had to drag along behind him, trying to justify it to other people. But scientific findings, great scientific findings, are never of the intellect. They are always of the intuition. So it's a great mistake that science has. There are two things that science will never be able to accomplish. The thought nowadays is that someday we will have to think in terms of computer rights, because then computers will be intelligent enough to be alive. Well, worms are alive. They're not intelligent, but they're alive enough that if you prick them with a pin, they withdraw, which means that both the sense of self and the sense of feeling, these science cannot duplicate. The movie 2001 Space Odyssey is a complete fallacy. The most human person in that movie was the robot himself, Hal. And the people in that movie, all feeling that they were scientists and had to be absolutely rigid in their exclusion of feeling and so on, they were the robots. It's a great mistake people make in these days. thinking that the less you feel, the more you can know. You can't know anything until your heart comes into the scene also. And so we must understand that it's excited feeling that disturbs, that prejudices the mind. Like somebody at a race, he wants his horse to win, and so he keeps egging it on. Well, he can't know whether the horse is good or not because his desire is so strong that it wins. We have to eliminate that aspect of emotion. But emotions are only disturbed feelings. When feeling is calm, then we can instantly know whether a thing is right or not. When I was a child, I used to enjoy playing with this thought that my reason would give me the right answers. I'd play with it in this way, that I would say to my mother, well, Mother, don't give me spinach. Spinach is green, and green is the color of envy and jealousy. You don't want your son growing up envious and jealous, do you? And I knew she knew I was joking. I was joking. But I did it deliberately to help me to understand, because I did have a keen intellect, to understand that that would not give me the truth I was looking for. And many times people would give me completely rational arguments for things and be upset with me because I simply wouldn't accept them as long as it was only my reason accepting or justifying them. I had to feel whether it was right in my heart. I wanted to be an astronomer. I wanted to be a scientist. And it was that feeling that I felt was missing that made me give it up. What did it matter to me whether there was one galaxy in the universe or 100 billion? It doesn't have any effect on me. There's no inspiration in that. So I was looking for a truth that would inspire me, that would help me to feel that there is more meaning in life. It isn't enough to give meaning as an abstract, logical syllogism. It has to be something inside. Why? What is the meaning of life? Well, really, it's very simple. Swami Shankara explained it perfectly. He said that God is Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. And my guru added that ever new, lest anybody think that bliss can become tiresome or boring. It never does. It's always fresh, it's always new. But this is what God is, and we have been expelled from him by his own consciousness. We're manifestations of that consciousness. And so what we need to do is understand that the meaning of life for us is that we want happiness. My guru wrote a wonderful book called The Science of Religion, in which he showed that and I've rewritten that book because it was very badly edited by one of his students, and now I've called it God is for Everyone. But the point is that everybody in the world wants two things. One is to escape pain, avoid suffering, and the other is to find happiness. And that happiness is just a human definition of bliss. So what all of us are looking for is bliss. So this is what I began to understand at the age of 14. I had tried first to be an astronomer, and I was grinding a mirror for a telescope, and I was very in earnest, but gradually I began to say, as I said a few moments ago, what does it matter how many galaxies there are in the universe? What does it matter what they look like? They're beautiful. It's wonderful to see pictures taken through the Hubble telescope, but it isn't personally inspiring. What can I find that will inspire? And so I began looking in different ways, and I was trying through politics, and I realized that no political system is going to really inspire people. No political system can be better than people themselves. And if those people are dark, the system will be dark. We have to understand systems don't produce people, people produce systems. So we have to refine our understanding, and I realize that politics are not going to do it. Economic and social systems are not going to do it. And I thought maybe the arts will do it. And I realized that there are several things wrong with the arts in the 20th century, and it's still spilled over into this century. That there is, they don't have any sense that there's real meaning. There's arguments between Impressionism and Realism and Surrealism and all those different things. Really speaking, what you want, I think of this as my best criterion for a good painting. Would you like the author of the thoughts that are expressed in that painting to be a guest in your own home? If not, then what's the use of it being skillfully done? I was in a hotel in Amsterdam a few years ago, and there was a big painting near the reception desk, and it was supposed to be a great painting. I saw nothing great in it. It didn't give me anything that inspired me. Art should inspire. But the thing is, even when it does inspire, it's still outside. It's still something you have to depend on. And I realized, no, I need more than that. And it seemed like every single path, I wanted to be a poet, I wanted to be a playwright. And many people thought I would be successful in those. Somebody wanted me to be a great singer. I thought, what's the use of singing if what I'm singing doesn't make any sense, if it doesn't have any inspiration in it? And so I gradually realized that although I had been trying to eliminate the thought of God from my reckoning, because I'd been to church, and church had been such a boring experience for me, but I realized in the end that that's the only possible answer. It has to be God. And if I looked back, as I looked back over history, I saw that the only people who had really accomplished anything great for mankind were people like Buddha, Jesus Christ, Krishna, great masters, those who knew God. And so I decided I must understand what God is. And I remember going out on a long walk near Charleston, South Carolina, where I was living at the time, and I asked myself this question: if there's a God, what must he be? Well, he can't be just a judge up there. He has to be somebody who wants our welfare, not somebody who's going to judge us for not doing the right thing. Because let's face it, he's the one who put us in this predicament. He has to want to get us out of it. It's not our fault that we make mistakes. Everything conspires to force us to make those mistakes. We have to get our body built as embryos. We have to feed that body when we're babies. We have to exercise that body when we begin to grow up a little bit. We have to learn to develop and refine our emotions. We have to refine our willpower. We have to refine our intellects. Only at about the age of 24 do we have the tools we need to really function well as human beings. And so I asked myself, what is God? And I realized that he can't be a robot. I mean, our minds can't be robots. We can't be, you can train a robot conceivably, or a computer, or whatever you like. You can perhaps train it to know how to eat and to eat, but you couldn't possibly train it to ask questions like this. So I realized that he had to be something more. This consciousness of mine had to come from something. It couldn't be just a mechanism. It couldn't be just electrons flowing through a circuit of nerves in the brain. And so I realized then, God has to be consciousness. And I then am conscious because I'm a part of his consciousness. But then if that is the truth, then I am more conscious if I'm more open to his consciousness, less conscious if I'm not open to it. And I remembered standing by the shore and watching the waves come in and break in through rocks, passages through the rocks onto the shore and absorbing themselves in the sand. And I reflected, well, but those openings, it depended on how wide the opening was, how much water could flow through them. So then I thought, well, that means that if my opening is big, I can let more of God through into me. Then the purpose of my life must be to attune myself to him and to make me more open to him. And I remember I came back from that walk and I had resolved, and now in that short walk, I had resolved my duty in life then has to be to seek God. And if that's my duty in life, then why do anything else? I must devote my life to seeking Him. And so I decided to become a hermit. I didn't know what a hermit was. I really wondered if I was going crazy, because I didn't know that anybody in history had ever tried to find God or even actually found Him. I knew that these religious founders had done some good, but I didn't know. I wondered if I was going crazy. But I remember that I just felt if I have to go crazy, then that's what I have to do, because there's no other purpose in life. I have to seek Him. And my roommates were all laughing at me for being so serious and so on. I thought, why listen to these yapping puppies? And I decided that for then and there I would give my life to God. Well, with God's grace, I managed to find Autobiography of a Yogi. And that book completely changed me. I didn't know anything about Vedanta teachings or anything of karma or dharma or anything. Didn't know the word guru. But as soon as I read that book, I knew this was my guru. I knew I needed help. Some people sometimes ask me, do I need a guru? I say, no, you don't. But if you know that you want God, then you need a guru. Otherwise, why bother? It's only when you really want God that God will send Him to you, as He sent Him to me. And when you really are seeking God, then He will show you those things that you need to do in order to get out of this swamp of delusion. And I have found by following Him that so many things have fallen away, and my life is filled with so much bliss. And I want you to understand that if you seek God, you will find the only thing worth seeking in life, and the only goal that it is possible to find. Joy to you.